Kia ora, Mr Speaker.
Members, the question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr Speaker.
I call Scott Simpson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I rise to speak in this first reading debate on the Environmental Protection Authority Protection of the Environment Amendment Bill in the name of Mika Whaiteri. And I want to, at the outset, congratulate the member. It's always an honour, I think, to have a member's bill drawn from the ballot. It is literally a lottery, so therefore not only is it an honour, but it involves a degree of luck and good fortune as well. And although this is a piece of good fortune that has befallen that member, the bill itself is one that I do have some problems with. And I want to just spend a few minutes, Mr Speaker, in speaking to those issues and questions that I have with the bill as it's proposed by Mika Whaiteri, and where I think some of the issues are that would prevent me and the National Party from supporting it in its current form. Sir, the addition of extra objectives into the Principal Act is, in my view, completely unnecessary. And the reason for that is simply that the Principal Act sets up and creates the Environmental Protection Authority. This is an authority that was created during the first term of this national government, and it was done with the purpose of providing an operational organisation that would ensure that arm's length policy would be determined separate from the politicisation of us mere politicians. And sir, I contend that, in fact, if this bill was to be passed by the House, the inclusion of the 7 small words that the sponsoring member has at the basis and the heart of this bill would, in fact, actually be detrimental and achieve a negative result, and the exact reverse result of the one that she is seeking to achieve. And sir, I think that that of itself is a fatal flaw in this bill. The EPA was set up, as I said, to be an arm's length operational entity, and it's my view that this amendment has the potential to turn the agency and impinge upon its operational integrity and independence. And I don't think that ultimately serves the objectives that the member is seeking to achieve in terms of the amendment to the Principal Act that she is proposing in this bill. The operational independence and credibility of the EPA is at the very heart of that legislation. It's the very heart of what it was designed to do. It was established precisely so that the difficult decisions could be taken independently and without the involvement of us mere politicians. Policy agencies, sir, operate best when there is less dependence from direction of that sort. And the EPA, in my view, absolutely does not need to move in that direction, and that would be, without doubt, I think, the potential impact if this bill was to proceed through the House. The amendment that is being proposed would have a significant impact on the way that the Environmental Protection Agency carries out the existing functions that it is tasked to achieve. Now, I note that there has been the media commentary that the member spoke about in this morning's media. I'm not aware of that. I choose to listen to far more uplifting and enlightening morning radio than the member does, and so I missed the commentary this morning. But I suspect, sir, without having heard that media commentary, that if there are questions from staff members as to their role and the function that they have, or that the agency that employs them has, then that's essentially an employment matter, and one that I thought that the Chief Executive of the organisation should properly address, because the Principal Act defines the role of the Environmental Protection Agency in very clear and precise terms, and that role, in my view, is completely unequivocal. and a role and a function that is understood, I think, by the vast majority of people who come into contact with the agency, the vast majority of its employees and its senior management team. That there may be some employees who are confused about their role, I think of itself is simply not a good reason to muck around with the objective provisions of the bill and amend the principal bill. There are functions that are provided to provide the assurances and the goals that the member seeks to achieve on this bill in other pieces of legislation. And that's particularly the way that the legislation that has been constructed. That's the way that it's been formatted, so that there are other pieces of legislation, such as the Resource Management Act and the Climate Change Response Act, for example, which provide exactly the kinds of definitional functionality that the member is seeking from this bill. So I'm not arguing that the objectives that she is seeking are wrong or invalid. This is just the wrong place for them. Those objectives are well covered in other pieces of legislation that have been designed specifically for that purpose. And although there isn't a proposal, sir, to add any additional functions into Section 13 of the Environmental Protection Authority Act 2011. This amendment, as being proposed, would still significantly, in my view, affect the way that the EPA carries out its existing statutory functions and obligations. The government set this organisation up as part of its first phase RMA reforms, and the principal bill was passed back in 2011. And as members will know very clearly, it's the plan and proposal of the government to introduce second phase RMA reforms later this year. And I know that the Minister, the Honourable Nick Smith, is working diligently and hard to achieve that, and is, as we speak, I suspect, working hard to seek cross-party support for the much-needed RMA Phase 2 reforms that will make that piece of legislation, that is the cornerstone piece of legislation in this area, a more functional and worthwhile piece of law that will provide much of the confidence and support that our environment needs going forward. Sir, as I said, the amendment as being suggested by Mika Whaitiri would, in my view, change the very purpose of the Environmental Protection Agency, and it would change it in a way that goes well beyond the original purposes of the Principal Act, and the bill does nothing to actually enhance the work of the agency. In fact, in my view, it has potential to detract and actually diminish the work of the agency's effectiveness. It has the potential to effectively undermine the operational effectiveness of the agency. The result of this amendment bill could actually be that the EPA is required as a result to apply a whole new set of tests to its functionality, and that would translate to a whole range of new duties, a whole definitional new menu of objectives that in fact would detract from the effectiveness of the agency in its current form. And I don't think that that necessarily provides any net benefit in terms of protection to our environment or to the measurement of our environmental standards. Sir, I do have clear difficulties with this bill, and it's well-intentioned, I know, the bill. I think the member is well-intentioned. I think that she brings to the House a piece of legislation that is thoughtful, but it does not help.
But the time has come for me to leave the chair. The House is adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. Ngā mihi nui a koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.